Hello, everyone. This is In the Bag on the No One Asked You podcast channel. It's episode 4, so I kind of assume you already know that, so perhaps we can dispense with the intros in the future. Uncertain. I'm winging it. Today's going to be a much shorter episode, I anticipate, than usual. It was very hectic, good hectic, mostly this week. So I only got to get 2 chapters of Dune read. Good hectic. I got to drive essentially 4 or 5 hours from one city to another. Spent some time with my dad and then with an old college friend of mine. Man, if you guys like books, you should check out this guy's home. He's got like 9 large bookcases full of what I find to be amazing books, like textbooks on filmmaking, on game design, coding, on writing, how to art, how to play the piano, all kinds of really wonderful things. I had so much fun kind of going through them. I was tempted to ask to borrow a couple, but I don't see him enough such that I would have been worried about a timely return. And generally speaking, I don't like borrowing things from people for a variety of reasons. So that will have to have been as it was. But Dune, Dune. Where last we left off, Paul and Jessica had finally met up with the Fremen, Stilgar's group specifically, but it was a bit of a tense situation. Ultimately, Stilgar intends to keep Paul alive. He's uncertain whether or not to let Jessica join them. I personally had a little bit of trouble envisioning I guess you could say, the geography where everyone was, specifics. But Paul climbs up some rocks to get a better vantage point to fight back if they have to. And I suppose what was confusing to me about this is if they were surrounded by Fremen, why would they let Paul do that? I guess you could say, I think Chani might even say at some point, you took the slow way up, so I guess they never really felt like they were any danger, so let him do that. But I think at another point, he successfully manages to knock Jamis out, so a little bit of confusion on my end with all of that. I don't think that's an issue of the book. I think that's perhaps me and my ADHD brain. Anyway, Jessica decides not to use the voice on Stilgar, which I think ultimately is a good choice because in the following chapter, Jessica comes to the realization that he's perhaps a much more in-depth person than she had initially anticipated. And I think the way the voice works, you have to understand a person or certain elements of a person in order to effectively use it on them. So good choice from Jessica. But she does manage to get him into some sort of headlock. They fight, and ultimately Jessica comes out on top. This proves her worth to Stilgar, and Paul manages to take out Jamis, who seems to have had an adversarial tone to Stilgar. He's, I guess you could say, the hot-headed one in the group. I think that is what was communicated to us. Jessica promises to teach the Fremen her fighting style or something to that effect in exchange for their protection. And Chani is tasked with watching after Paul. Paul is amazed to see her because he recognizes her from the visions. So, yay! You recognize each other. And I do believe from the movies there will be a developing love story there. So they all head off to their siege, and they're getting close to the siege, but they have to wait a day for the day to end, rather, so that they can finish traveling across the desert. And we get a really interesting discussion with Stilgar and Jessica. Jessica mistakenly believes he's proposing some sort of relationship between the two, which I found humorous. Um, but that isn't what Stilgar's going after, or what his goal is from this conversation. He explains a bit about how the strongest Fremen is the leader, and by beating him, he has to walk a fine line to avoid challenges from younger and more hot-headed Fremen. And that was really neat and wise. And it's he doesn't want to have to take their lives, so he's ultimately supremely confident that he would win any fight, but it would be a fight to the death, and he values life, and he doesn't want the youngers. He's not, I guess, concerned so much about his position as he is about the lives of his tribe, which is wonderful. Jessica is impressed by Stilgar's wisdom. She underestimated him, and I believe what I got was that Stilgar ultimately wants Jessica to become a Reverend Mother. And Jessica has a lot of thoughts regarding the Missionaria Protectiva, I think it's called, and how the earlier Bene Gesserit had planted these religious ideas in these various planets, and she's trying to, I guess, call upon her knowledge of the lore so that she can manipulate it. Stilgar does not yet believe that Paul is the prophet. He's waiting for signs, but doesn't want to tip fate by revealing what those signs are. And I think that speaks not just to the wisdom, but to the intelligence of this character. It's smart thing to do. Jessica does something, and again, probably just my ADHD brain, but she recites, I guess, the Bene Gesserit lore that she had been thinking about to, I guess, give some sort of other sign that they are the religious figures that they're waiting for. Ultimately, whatever that was, it was successful in what her goal was, which was to secure her position, I think. It seems to win over Stilgar and most of the Fremen. Let's see, going through my notes. Paul eats some food that Chani gave him, which had more spice than he expected. I remember that moment from the movie. But it really goes in deep with the prose and what's going on in his mind, because he's overwhelmed with the prescience. He sees all of the future pathways from a single movement, and he's afraid to move, but even not moving is a choice that leads to several outcomes, and I guess most outcomes lead to death. Jamis continues to seem a hot-headed individual. We get some excellent information from Stilgar, I think, or Chani. I don't recall off the top of my head. Like I said, busy week. Regarding their long-term plans to terraform the planet very slowly, which coincides with Dr. Kynes and previous prose regarding the proper ways, the long-term ways to terraform a planet. And this coincides really, really well with all of the sudden description of plant life on Arrakis. Not that there's much, but little bits, and generally in areas where the Fremen are. And I really, really like this work. So in the movies, as I recall, the idea of turning Arrakis into a paradise felt more like a religious um, goal. One day it will happen, and I don't think it was. If it was explained, I missed it in the movie. That they are actively taking steps to terraform the planet, apart from merely waiting from their Messiah to do it. In this book, it really adds an inner life, a goal, a lot of depth to the Fremen, and that is something that I was very, very excited to sit with and enjoy. So that's about as far as I got into it, just those two chapters. Hopefully, my life will be a bit calmer, at least for the next couple of weeks, and I'll be able to dedicate a bit more time to reading. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Okay, thanks. Bye.